Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 110 of the Podcana podcast. This week, I'm joined by Moyen as usual, and we have a few different topics to discuss. The first main one, of course, is did you guys get your DLC tickets? I know it was an absolute disaster, as we kind of expected it to at this stage. Unfortunately, I feel like if we expected, you know, better server stability, there's just a high demand for these events, and it does feel like a mini game trying to get these tickets. Moyen, did you get your tickets?
Yeah, I got my ticket. Um, I was refreshing for like a minute, kind of getting scared already. Why am I not getting in? But then, I got the ticket like a few seconds after. A friend had already sent me a screenshot of it being sold out, so I must have been like very close. I only got one for Italy, so I won't be attending the one in America. But I'm happy I at least got that one. How about you?
I managed to get tickets for both. I put like a misspelling in my email for the one in Bologna, but it's all sorted, it's all fixed. Um, but it was even harder for me because I was trying to get tickets for Kim as well, and Kim was like leaving work on her phone, and she didn't get anything, so I had to have like five devices trying to refresh everything, getting basically four tickets in total. Um, but yeah, I do want to speak about like in my opinion, the Fanfinity site functioned the same way it functioned last year. Yes, it was a little bit in like there was a bit of instability. However, their system was exactly the same. What would happen is if you got a ticket within your cart, if you had an extra ticket, then you just wait 20 minutes, and then those tickets would reopen to people again. So around like 20 past 5, 20 past 6 here within EU, there was a higher chance that people could kind of refresh again and more tickets were kind of released from the first wave. So, yeah, it's still pretty much sold out instantly, right? Like it reminded me of Lille. It felt like Lille for how many people were kind of on the website and the demand for the tickets. The US situation, on the other hand, I just have to say it was a complete disaster. So
Yeah, yeah. So my feed today has been full of people memeing about the US ticket sale, and I'm not quite sure what happened.
I will explain to you what happened, my friend. So the first thing that happened was 1 hour before the tickets were supposed to go live, they went live, which, in my opinion, is just like completely unacceptable. That's somebody who scheduled something wrong, and there was loads of debate back and forth of like, should they honor these tickets that were bought already? Do they like? I think what they basically decided to do was yes. I mean, we should honor them. The tickets went up early. People went to buy them. But from what I saw online, it looked like it went down from about 2,000 to 1,700 after those early sales. For the next 40 minutes, you would refresh the page, you would just get like error 502, bad gateway, all of these. You basically couldn't load the website. But then I happened to be in the Discord channel for the American ticketer, and like just before the tickets went live, there was a post that said uh, we are changing where you can buy the tickets. So they switched from the event website over to Eventbrite. I think because maybe they didn't anticipate the demand, or like maybe the website wasn't able to handle so many people. So it's interesting to me that they kind of had this as a backup, but then I guess why didn't they just announce it was going to be on Eventbrite in the first place? I know it was tricky to get tickets last year on Eventbrite within the US, but it was feasible. People were at least more used to the system for how that works. So I don't know how much they announced it when the tickets went live, but for me at least, so I felt like if I wasn't in that Discord server, I wouldn't have found the other link to go and click on the tickets, and those tickets basically sold out just as fast as EU. So, um, yeah, it was not a pleasant experience at all, and all I can say is I hope they learned from this, but you would expect that maybe they would have learned from it already. So, in my opinion, on Fanfinity's side, the website ran the same way it's ran before. The demand was high, but they handled it, and that's the way their system does it. The US side, in my opinion, it was unacceptable, and that needs to be changed. Like, how would you feel, Moyen, if your friend was like, "Okay, this is the link to the website. without any other communication. You're refreshing that link, and then you find out, oh, the tickets were never available on this website. They've moved them to somewhere else, like at the exact time they were supposed to go live. Like that's very frustrating, right?
Yeah, especially like it kind of adds to the existing issue of okay, in some of these regions we have less tournaments now, like
Yes,
in Europe
exactly.
and America. And now with you having less tournaments, now if you also miss out on one of those opportunities based on something that's completely out of your control, I imagine that must feel horrendous.
I want to pick your brain. I know we've talked about this before, but in general on the idea of raffling these tickets, because
Mm-hmm.
I know you said you've had experience with this within for One Piece events. However, we did see that for when these like set one boxes went on sale, the English boxes, the Chinese boxes, and the Japan boxes. They had this Ravensburger had this competition running for I think maybe the past week or two, where you could kind of enter a raffle, and if you got selected, you could purchase these boxes. So they're familiar with these systems. They've used these systems already, and I'm just curious on your thoughts if you think it's more fair. It means there's none of this instability issue. And,
Mm-hmm.
I guess maybe some people would argue against it because they say, well, if I show up on time, I should be guaranteed a ticket. That's not always the case if situations like this happen. But,
Yeah.
do you think a raffle is just more fair, even with a
Yeah.
demand like this, right?
Yeah. So but I have a very personal bias against it, which is like I feel like I'm much more likely to get a ticket just being there and refreshing and buying it. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe like sometimes you miss out, but like I I've had a much better chance getting one this way than if it's down to pure chance.
Yep.
Um, but that's entirely separate from the conversation about is it more fair? And it probably is more fair to have a raffle. Um, but
I
then
think I
again,
think people would still complain though, right? You can't
of
please
course,
both
I
sides,
mean,
right? Yeah.
imagine you have a raffle and then okay, so the raffle, if you have one, it needs to incorporate how often someone has already, like to be fair, it kind of needs to incorporate how often were you already able to play a tournament through a raffle. Let's say there's 3 DLCs in America. The system should not be in a way where someone gets to play 3 DLCs and the other one doesn't get to play any. So that would need to be incorporated. But then as soon as that's incorporated, it's also like how many DLCs do you get to play on average? Like one,
One, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
maybe two if you're lucky, maybe one or zero. Um, my last raffle experience was like was the huge One Piece events where there was like multiple 2K player events, and the system was in a way where no one would get to play two of them before someone would get to enter one of them,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't get to enter any of them, and that just felt awful because it wasn't even like DLCs. It was kind of like an even bigger event than DLC.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so it probably is more fair. I guess the one thing that it isn't more fair about is like, okay, even if it doesn't always work out, I feel like if with the system where you just have to be quick and buy, usually on average the people that like care about it more also get in more.
Mm-hmm.
Like no one that just like casually like there's no one would get a ticket that's like casually showing up. Oh, there's a ticket sale. Maybe I'll check it out a few days after. Maybe I buy. Maybe I won't. Like that, then you have no chance. Where if it's just a raffle, the cost of signing up is like not 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 even there. I guess as soon as you win the raffle, you also have to buy the ticket. You don't just have the ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You have like a week or something to buy it then. Yeah, so to me, it's a really difficult question to answer. Maybe because of my personal bias. How do you feel about the pros and cons of maybe having a raffle?
I think you've actually highlighted it extremely well, better than I could even speak about it, honestly. I think that speaks to the experience that you've had, right? You've been in that position where you've felt that feels bad moment, right? And I think a lot of people can look at this system and be like, oh, maybe truthfully a raffle would be more fair, but it would still feel bad for people. And it sucks what happens with these situations. If you didn't get a ticket because of server errors or site crashes and stuff, that sucks. But I do also agree with you that the people that care about trying to go to these events and play these events will do all they can to do it, right? Like for example, for me, like I had 5 devices open because I want to try and get a ticket. I don't necessarily enjoy doing that, but it's kind of maybe what we have to do, right? And I honestly don't know if one system is better than the other. Um, I think moving forward, I would still probably advocate for this system of a first come first served basis because I feel like I will be present at the time. It's the best shot I can get a ticket. And if I don't get a ticket, sure, I could be unlucky, but I will have the best chance of getting a ticket by being present there at the time with some devices ready to go. You know, I also don't think that people should be. This is my honest opinion, right? It's like people try to bot tickets and like use these things. Maybe if some people feel like, oh, this is super necessary, I really, really have to. It's like, sure, do whatever you want to do, but you know, I tried to refresh. I tried to get in to have a chance. I know that's what everybody else does as well. Um, but yeah, that was the DLC ticket situation. However, if you guys did get tickets, let us know. Myself and Moyen would love to see you guys. It's been a minute since we've really been around like a lot of the like wider European Lorcana community together, right? So I would really love to see you guys there, and also, yeah, I will be in Milwaukee, which is I'm very very excited about. I can't lie, I haven't been to America for a DLC yet. I've only been to Canada, so I'm excited to meet everybody over there as well. So let us know down below in the comments if you guys got tickets, if you're excited, and yeah, one of the next topics that we're going to be discussing is CCQs, because I know myself and Kim did kind of the quick update video. We wanted to inform you guys what these were. However, before we jump into CCQs, I'm going to quickly go through our Spilled Ink section because it's not too long this week, and I do think there's some relevant things that we can discuss in there. So, again, if you guys don't know, our Spilled Ink section is our listener question section. If you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below or within our Discord server. So the first one's from Lou Kind. They put this in their Discord. They said, when watching the live stream about the World Championships, I heard the terms tempo and value a lot. Could you please explain those terms with an example and explain the difference between them? So, Moyen, I'd love for you to discuss this. I think this is a great comment, by the way, especially for maybe newer players coming into TCG. These are terms that I think we maybe take for granted or say a lot because we really understand it. But to some people, yeah, these are just like weird words, right? Like, what is tempo, you know?
Yeah, and honestly I've used these words so often, and it's not even that easy to then put into words what exactly it is that they mean, because they're like on one hand side they're like kind of very fundamental terms, but on the other hand side explaining them can be like they can also be kind of complex, and what exactly falls under like there's some niche scenarios on what falls under tempo or value. And I think, okay, at first let's kind of try to get a fundamental understanding of those words. I think tempo I would try to describe as like how quickly you can impact the game, like so basically like the ratio of impacting the game to like what amount of resources or time or turns you spend doing that, which doesn't really take into account what it costs you. Like maybe you have 5 ink and you have 5 cards and you play 5 one-drops, and like the tempo of that is the 5 one-drops that you put onto the board, not necessarily how much it costs you, and that you're now out of resources in terms of out of cards. But then again, you could also regard like this is the tempo over one turn, and then you could think, okay, what if you're trying to make the highest tempo play over the course of the next 3 turns, maybe using your entire hand on this one turn, it doesn't quite achieve that. But I hope that gives a little bit of understanding about tempo, whereas value really is getting the most out of your card. For example, dragon firing an 8-drop Tamatoa instead of a Grammatala. It's like there's a lot more value in that. But sometimes your opponent has a Tala and they're at 19 lore, or maybe they're about to sing How Far I Go, which you don't want them. You don't want that to happen. Drag ring firing that is might be necessary. So sometimes, actually, a lot of times, it is in a lot of card games, it is very necessary to like sacrifice value for tempo. In a lot of these games, tempo is incredibly important, especially. Well, it kind of depends on the card pool, but as long as there's like, as decks are kind of able to play, like do reasonable game actions, meaningful game actions for a while without running out of resources entirely. In a card pool where there's a lot less card generation, or okay, card generation doesn't really exist here. Let's say a lot less card draw available. It might be a lot more reasonable to hold some stuff back, even at the cost of tempo, because you will need the value. The game will go long enough, and if you do go for tempo, you're running out of cards too soon. For example, Blurple is like a deck that's so packed full with value, with like Finders Keepers, which costs 5 and draws you 3 cards, and the like density of high impact, high cost cards in your deck is also pretty big. So like paying 5 to draw 3 cards and then playing the cards that you've gotten out of that, which might draw you even more cards, like it gives you infinite stuff to do, which enables the deck to kind of ink some high value cards early, if that will allow it to play for the board a little bit quicker to gain more tempo, but only because the deck has a lot of card draw, whereas maybe an Ember Steel deck or something that can quickly run out of value if they don't get their docks or their Rapunzel to draw cards. They might have to be a lot more careful about, can I actually ink this aggressively, or do I have to hold some of the stuff back in case I don't get a good Rapunzel off or something like that.
I think that makes a lot of sense here. And there's other cards I would very much associate with the terms like tempo and value. And I think you described that perfectly. Of value can be considered potentially how many cards am I getting by playing this card? An example for Finder's Keeper, right? Like you're going up on resources. Technically, granted, it's a higher cost. The example of removing a card with a card that costs less than said card, that's that's kind of a value play. But then you've also got cards like Kit Cloud Kicker, which can be like a big tempo swing, right? Maybe, I mean, yeah, even at the start of the game, Kit can be pretty good if they've played, like, if it's turn 3 and your opponent plays a Diablo without shifting, and then you play a Kit Cloud Kicker, you've basically, by doing that, you've established a character, a body on the board, and you've basically just negated what your opponent's done the previous turn, right? So that's a really good example of keeping tempo of that's an example of like a tempo swing, right? So yeah, I think most of that makes sense. And if you guys have any other questions about that type of stuff, feel free to let us know down below.
Yeah, Kid Cloud Kicker is a great example because it's a very high tempo play, especially if you manage to like Kid Cloud Kicker a 3-drop, right? They've spent their entire turn, you've spent your entire turn, but you're left with something on the board, they're not. And also like it can be regarded as like a very low value play because you didn't like actually remove anything. If the game goes on for long enough, they will just be able to replay that card. So I think that's why it's easy to undervalue a card like Kid Cloud Kicker. And the way you get around that is by understanding that of that tempo that you can gain by a card like Kid Cloud Kicker, there's a lot of value to be gained from that, right? So even though there's no inherent, like you're not actually removing something or making a huge threat, no, it's just like this annoying 2/2. Still, what this tempo swing enables you to do is actually to quest with your early characters without getting removed. And that might mean you can maybe quest multiple times. So like by doing the tempo play, you can gain the value of gaining some extra lore over the next few turns, or and then if you can continue playing high tempo, you might just have more questing characters than they have characters that can challenge into your characters, which then again you're losing some value because you're letting them get to good trades, but at the cost of you gaining some extra lore. So like tempo and value, these terms, while they kind of describe opposing things, like there's a lot of interplay between them.
For sure, yeah. I think that was greatly explained. The next comment is from Nick Gagalis. They say, aside from Amber Steel, since Frank showed his list, do you think there are any other color combinations that could produce a similar level of quality in a singleton deck? If so, which ones and why? I actually never asked Frank how he did. I did see on Twitter that I think he said at one stage he was 2-2 in his set champs. So I mean, I can imagine from the comment that he said, he was like, yeah, the deck's been fine, but it's notably a lot worse than a deck that would have 4 obs of certain cards, right? Which makes a lot of sense. Um, but in my opinion, if I had to pick a color combination besides Amber Steel that just had a high density of good quality cards, honestly, I think I'd probably pick green purple. Maybe green purple seems like the next one that you could maybe do. I feel like red purple potentially, but every time I look at a red purple list, it's like 80% purple cards and a little bit of ruby cards, right? So you kind of want a color combination that has a good amount of both. So I think I'd maybe mess around with a green purple singleton deck. What about you? Would you agree, or would you try something else maybe?
Yeah, I think I actually agree. I'm sure. I think outside of Amber Steel, I think Amber Steel also works because there's like enough synergies and kind of like cards that are still trying to do largely the same thing, which is like play characters, sing some removal song, refill your hand with like Dog, Desperate Plan, or Whole New World. So I think that works. But I think outside of that, I would expect mostly Amethyst plus something to work because
Yes.
Amethyst has like a huge um, a huge amount of actually pretty good cards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and I think it probably has the biggest amount of like, it doesn't have like the best cards necessarily, but it has like the most amount of like kind of playable cards or almost playable cards. And then I guess I don't see the big reason to pair them with. I think Ruby or Sapphire could be okay, but there's like not that many great cards in those. If you don't get to run the cards that are good in those decks 4 times. So I think Emerald by now has kind of caught up in, and it might be like the next best color in terms of having a lot of decent cards.
Yep, I think I'd agree as well. Uh, the next comment is from Marduk. They say, fantastic news. This is in relation to the announcement that myself and Kim made about the CCQs and then also the APAC region DLCs. They say, while I'm glad for the DLC events in Southeast Asia, it's a bit of a letdown that they're going to be best of one events. We've been used to playing best of three since set one here in Singapore. Yeah, that's a very bizarre decision to me, right? Do you think that's, I mean, I don't know what that's related to, but I'm guessing maybe it's a time issue. I know One Piece does best of one though, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on best of one Lorcana? Because I have zero experience with it.
Um, yeah, I don't love it,
Mm.
but I think for example in One Piece it's really not that bad because play draw disparity is pretty low.
Mm.
In
That
or at least it
helps.
used to be
That
when I
makes it a
played like
lot
half
better,
year ago.
actually. Yeah, yeah.
And then so like of course one player usually has like a little bit of an advantage, sometimes even a significant one. But you feel kind of still like it's almost fair game
Mm-hmm.
each game. Um, but in Lorcana, just best of one. Well, I mean, I personally also have my issues with best of three, so I don't even think best of one is that much worse. But yeah, it's definitely it might be the least my least liked format for Lorcana probably.
Yeah, like I don't know if I. Well, I don't know. I don't want to say this like because we have the DLCs with these other, with best of three and stuff like that, and we're used to different things. I'm happy to play in them. Also, a big reason why I'm also traveling to America for these as well, is that within Europe and NA, they have the most invites to EU championships, NA championships, and then the paths to kind of worlds. For the other regions, I think there's a less amount of invites. Um, but yeah, I mean, at least there is an event within the region. That's of course is a great thing. But yeah, I can understand the feeling if you guys have all been playing best of three since set one, like the rest of us, and then all of a sudden they just announce the DLC is going to be best of one. It's weird. Like yeah, I could imagine there would be outrage. Could you imagine if it was best of one within the EU and NA as well? Like I don't
Yeah.
necessarily see the reason
Yeah.
why there needs to be these different things between regions. It would make me feel bad, right? I don't know why this part of the
But
world has to have a different format. Like I can't see the reason. Maybe there is a reason, we just don't know. It could be time limitations, it could be whatever. In my opinion, that's not really an excuse, but I don't know why they've made this decision. But I'm assuming there
yeah.
has to be a reason. I feel like there has to be a reason.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to come up with why does it need to be different in different
Yes.
regions,
Hmm.
because I think in general it's usually great if you can kind of compare, like if all of these events are kind of the same format,
Hmm.
and you don't have to feel like, oh no, but this was best of one and this was 2-1 format and this best of three, and so like all of these tournament ideas are different.
Hmm. The last comment is from Gambit. They say, so this comment is in relation to when I made the news video with Kim. I spoke about my potential concerns that while they're doing the CCQs, and it's great that they've taken 24 invites from the 32 invite slots that are usually allocated to LCQs. These 24 invites are now allocated to NA and EU third-party events, right? That will be supported by Ravensburger, and they will give out these additional invites. My concern was that if LCQs are then left with only 8 invites, and if they kept the same structure of it was like 32 man pods, beforehand it was 32 pods of 32 people playing for 32 invite slots. This time it would be 8 pods of 32 people, which would equate to 256. So my concern was like, if we think DLC is selling out fast, could you imagine trying to buy tickets for a 256 LCQ player event? It would feel impossible. Like, it would feel absolutely dire. However, Gambit has pointed out that they could just make the LCQ pods 64 players or 128 players and make the winner really earn it, which it's not a bad decision to do if they go down this route. I don't think it's that bad. Ideally, the solution moving forward, what I would love is I wish they just increased the amount of people within that can qualify to the EU Championships. I'm not saying by a lot, and I want to actually pose this question to you, Moyen, because you've played in an EU Championships. You played when it was 128 players. Were you comfortable with that amount? Do you wish maybe there was a little bit more? Do you think with it remaining that amount, that's a nice amount of players to have? And do you think and then finally, I guess I'll say, do you think it's even worth considering completely getting rid of LCQs and allocating the rest of these 8 invites to more third-party events?
Um, well, that's an option.
Hmm.
That I'm not like totally against. I think these third-party events getting invites is a great thing. Um, and well, I don't care as much about the amount, right? It doesn't make a huge difference to me if I'm playing a 96 player event or 128 player
Hmm.
event. Um, what I do really care about, or at least somewhat care about, is I think that like I kind of want the feeling that everyone
Has
that's in
earned their
this event
place.
earned it. Um, and okay, I might sound like an ass here, but I think it was far easier to get in last year
In
by winning an
LCQs.
LCQ.
Hmm.
I think mathematically that's just not really something you can oppose. It was just winning a few best of threes, winning was it 16 player pods,
32 player pods, so I think it's
32 player
5
pods.
games, right? 5 games, 4
Um,
games.
yeah,
32,
5.
top 16, top 8, top 4, top 2. Yeah, 5.
Yes. Okay. So winning 5 best of threes in a row.
Yeah.
While impressive, it does. I don't think it compared to like top 16ing a DLC.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does mean that some people get in like, I guess, a little bit easy. And for that reason, I really I still think like if it's a 64 player LCQ pod, that's still a very fair shot. You just have to win 64 player event. Even 128 could be okay. I think that would still give a huge incentive to play these events. But at the end of the day, if LCQs, I guess I don't know. What if LCQs didn't exist? Because then suddenly there's like a lot less people. Like this, it suddenly contains like this very small event.
100%. It's actually I can't remember if I talked about it in the video, but this was a concern I also had where like maybe LTQs should be a necessity for the reason to have people at Euros, right? To like,
Yes.
if you don't like, because honestly, like I think I did say this in the video. Myself and Kim, we didn't do good in our LCQs, but EU Champs was such a great time because we were there, we got to watch the games, we still got to earn some, like Baymax and Cusco promos, so we had a good time still playing the game. Granted, I do think the last European Championship, in my opinion, there actually wasn't enough for players to do after the LCQs. It was pretty much like play some pack rushes, here's your stuff, watch the stream. Which in our case, I didn't mind too much because we got to support you, we got to, watch your games. But if you've traveled to play Lorcana, I would hope that you do more than just do your LCQs, right? Like just do some different side events, do some drafts, do like a mini constructed. Like they even did. You had like the constructed event on day 2, even after you didn't get into top 8, right? And you enjoyed that and you did pretty well. I know you're debating about playing it, but I think you still had a good time doing that one, right?
No. Yeah, I got second there.
Yeah,
But
you crushed
didn't
it.
matter.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't matter, but it was. I'm sure in a sense, yes, we had Disneyland, we had other things you could do, but let's say Disneyland wasn't there, you were happy you could play more
Sure, then I
Lorcana,
would have been
right?
happy.
Yes.
But no, I was playing it, and then suddenly all my friends were in Disneyland without me, and they didn't ask.
Yeah, it's
And I was
like
playing the side
me,
event.
Kim, Zan, Alphos. Yeah, it was a big group of
Rub it
us.
in.
Yeah.
Okay. No, but okay. So in general, I think it's okay because this is very important about LCQs. I think they are important to making Continentals a spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
And while like you were happy, even if LCQs weren't great, like you were happy to be there because it was still a great time.
Mm-hmm.
But still, without the LCQs, you wouldn't come.
I agree. I wouldn't come.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people just wouldn't come. Like basically almost all of them.
I'd rather.
Like,
Why would I pay
great
the money to
combination.
come? Right? Like it's like I could sit at home and watch it. But
Yeah.
I agree. And I think the points you made there are very, very fair. You cannot. I really agree with you that you cannot deny that mathematically it is easier to qualify through an LCQ, right? You just have to run hot. And granted, sure, you got to run hot in DLCs, but there's way more players, there's way more games you're playing. But I think, in my opinion, if they bumped it up to 128 player pods, while it's still easier, it's still a challenge. Like you said, it's still a spectacle. You still get to enjoy the event. So those are the two routes I would like to see them take. I would like to see them increase. Honestly, I'd probably like to see it go to 128 because if you do 64, it's still not a lot of tickets that are available for LCQs, right? I think it's I think it just goes to 500 from 256. So if you go 128, that's 1,000 LCQ tickets that are available, which is quite a lot, right? That's good. Or you could get rid of the LCQs and give them to third-party events, which is great because more people get to play these third-party events, support other TOs and other organizers, and those events are also difficult. I'm assuming, we don't know yet, but I'm assuming like top player or top 2 players maybe get the invite. That's still impressive to perform so well at these events, so that's great. But yeah, I could see them leaning towards just making the pods bigger because from the point that you made, I think they want to have people present at NA champs and EU champs, and it would just make sense for me. Like, I don't know if getting rid of LCQs completely is actually a good idea now that we're talking about it, but it's interesting we're even having this conversation, right? It's good to kind of share ideas and maybe try to understand the thought process that might even be happening within Ravensburger at the moment. This could literally be the same things that they're discussing in their offices, right? Who knows? But yeah, Yeah, that was the building section. Again, if you guys want to have your questions read out on next week's episode of the podcast, be sure to pop a comment down below. We'll be moving on to decklist shortly, but I guess we've kind of been discussing CCQs now, but would love to get your overall opinion on them. I guess your thoughts on how spread out you feel like they should be. Would you? Here's an interesting question. Would you prefer more CCQ events across Europe and across NA, where the person who wins it qualifies, which means there's more of them, rather than some of the smaller ones, the first person qualifies. If you've got a bigger one, top two. I have my opinions, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Well, so on one hand, I really want. I think it would be great if there was a lot of events that had some incentive. Because that just really, it's like such a huge incentive to go to one, even if there's like a single slot. On the other hand, I think if it's like it wouldn't quite make sense to me if like a 100 player event had one slot and then like a 500 player event also had one slot. So I would still like to see like them have somewhat of a similar ratio of like player to spots.
That's a very fair point. Yeah, I think there should be some regulations that are put in place, and I'm sure there are regulations. For example, let's say the event has to be a minimum of like 256 player event, maybe 300 plus player event to even qualify to have it. And granted, I will admit, in some areas of the world where maybe it's harder to get that amount of people together, they could try to work to give some of these invites. But for the most part, I do agree. I think the ratio should be similar at least. And in general, I think I'd still be happier if we got two different 256 player events in kind of two different parts of the world, or of Europe or within NA, and both of them awarded a qualification for the first place player, rather than one bigger event, because I just want more people within different pockets of NA and EU to have a chance. That's the whole reason why I think that these CCQs are great, because the biggest thing that we talked about within NA, right? Like there's nothing on West Coast, so I want to see a lot of these ones spread out across West Coast. And granted as well, it's harder, I feel like, for a lot of TOs to host something as big as it also wouldn't make sense, when like let's say someone's like, oh, we're gonna host a 1,000 player event, we want 4 CCQ invites, and it's like, okay, yeah, sure, that could be cool. It's kind of like a mini DLC, but that's also 3 invites that could have went to other TOs. And as these events happen, I'm sure relationships will build up with Ravensburger. There will be some trusted partners and stuff like that. So I think this is all going to be a learning process. But for the most part, my opinion is I'd like to see more events with just that incentive of even first place. And on top of it, I do have to mention one thing. I'm extremely happy that Ravensburger was even able to do this. My concern with their prize cards and the extra prizing they were going to add to these events was, from my understanding of how the TCG industry works, a lot of this is like it's planned so far in advance. Like the printings for DLC prize tickets, for the foil cards, for the promo cards, that maybe there just isn't enough to be able to say, oh, we've got these spare promo cards, let's give these to these third-party CCQ events, right? So when they actually said that they're going to be giving out the Pegasus and the Mulan and the Simbas to the CCQ events, I was very impressed, right? And of course that might just mean that they have a lot of stock of it, and that's great. But that again is even more incentive to go to these events, having this exclusive prizing, even if you don't even if you don't qualify, it's something extra that you get. Granted, myself and Kim said we still don't know. I still don't know if they've clarified that it's going to be structured the same way as the pricing is structured for DLCs, right? So if let's say, for example, it's a 256 player event, is everybody who participates going to get a Pegasus promo? Is everyone who gets 5-round wins going to get the Mulan? Is everyone who gets top 64 going to get the Simba? Or if they have a smaller amount of those cards, right, maybe they just say, okay, like top 128 gets the Pegasus, which to me would be weird, because if it's like top 128 gets the Pegasus and this is just like a participation promo for a DLC, like I'd rather see it just given to players, right? They bought the ticket, they're going to the event. But I mean, that all depends on allocation and how much extra stock they have. But would you agree that this is a massive improvement. Not only are they doing the invite, but having exclusive prizing really increases the appeal of going to these events, right?
Yeah, both of these things are great. Even one of even like if it was just exclusive pricing or
Yes.
just the invite,
Hmm.
it would have still been great. But yeah, this will really make these events very much like very exciting. It's not like they weren't selling well, right? People were playing while there was nothing to play
Yep,
for as well. But I think now it will hype things up quite well.
for sure. With that, we are now going to move into our deck list section. All right, so kicking things off, we're going to take a look at a first place deck list that won a 38 player event this past weekend. 38 players, nothing too crazy. However, I just really liked the idea of this deck list and the brew that this player came up with. It's a Ruby Sapphire deck, and it's not the conventional deck that you've kind of come to see. Usually within the competitive scene, we see kind of the Maui Half Shark, Burn DKP deck, and we also see the item build of Red Blue. So, Moyen, would you mind breaking this deck down, letting people know like the general game plan of what it's trying to do? And I haven't even heard your thoughts on this list. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this list, particularly honestly, moving in to like the idea of rotation. So we can even look at the deck and say, okay, how many cards would actually leave the deck and how many cards do we still have?
Sure. So there's kind of like a value mid-range pile that be quite um, can be quite fast because it has multiple ways to kind of leverage high strength characters. One of them being the Flynn Rider that we know and love or don't love. Just in combination with high strength characters if it doesn't get removed. Okay, the tree lore at the start of your turn can be very explosive, and the other one is this Tinkerbell from set 8, which is an inkable 2-cost evasive 1/1 that quests for 1. That also says when you play a character with 5 strength or more, you may exert them to gain 2 lore. And you're only exerting them, not the Tinkerbell. So the Tinkerbell, as long as it's not met with like removal, it's sitting there and it doesn't need to expose itself. Just kind of like the Flynn. So they where they're both weak to maybe some steel removal. Outside of that, maybe they can just like sit there, and while they're sitting there, you can gain a lot of lore, and that ties in very well with like the theme that Ruby has in general, where it has like the highest strength character in Lorcana, and also like some pretty decent high strength characters. They're not just high strength. The best example is probably the Maui Hero to All, as just like a card that even without the Tinkerbell is just amazing. Even if you don't get to use the rush ability, if you want to exert it to gain 2 lore, that might just be better and turns it into like kind of a goat in terms of gaining the 2 lore. And then outside of that, it also has the Prince John, which is a 3-cost 5/5, which can curve very well after the Flynn or the Tinkerbell. But the downside is it does deal 1 damage to itself when an opponent plays a character.
Yes.
Then from Sapphire doesn't really have high strength characters, but it does have one pretty good one, which is the 4-cost uninkable 5/5, the Scrooge McDuck that quests for 2. And then yeah, it does just leverage these 2 cards very well, the Flynn Rider and the Tinkerbell.
There's even the Cogsworth that's probably worth mentioning because this Cogsworth card, I believe it's when you have an item card in your discard, it gets +2 strength. So like a pretty powerful opener could be you play Popsicle on turn 1 or a Scepter of Arendelle, and then you pop your item, you play your bell. Turn 2, you either play Flynn or Tinkerbell, and then turn 3, you play Cogsworth to combo with said Flynn or Tinkerbell. So I think that's a pretty interesting line. The Li Shang in this deck is a little bit interesting. It just buffs up your characters that have 4 or more strength. One card I'd like to pick your brain on. If you, I don't know if it would even fit into this list because there's not a lot of actions. But what I like about the idea of a card like Maui Half Shark with Tinkerbell at least is that when it comes in and exerted, if they don't have evasive characters, it doesn't really matter that it's coming
Mm-hmm.
that it has come and exerted. However, I don't think you want to play maybe half shark just because of that. I think you definitely need to have accompanying actions with it. But the
Mm-hmm.
idea of that's interesting at least, right?
Yeah, no, I think when I tried building this, I think I would try to build it around the half shark a little bit as well. Um, it doesn't even need to be like the fanciest actions. Could just be like sail and develop your brains.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it could even be like fan the flames works kind of well
Mm-hmm.
together with if you actually want to protect, like to play something exerted to gain to lore, re-ready it immediately to kind of protect it. Um, I think what really surprised me there's only 3 Rush Maris in this.
Mm.
It seems like kind of an amazing card in the deck. Um, so yeah, the deck's really cool. Um, very refreshing take on how on a mostly solved meta. Um, what the deck's what's kind of weird in the deck is like Sail is so good that maybe you just play it, but like it has really bad synergy in this deck because on
Mm-hmm.
turn 2 you really want to like already set up the payoff for having a high strength character which you can play on turn 3. But if you play Sail on 2, then okay, on 4 ink you play a 4 ink character. But then
Then you're just doing Tala stuff. That's not really what the deck wants to do,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
then you're doing like ramp into Scrooge or ramp
Mm-hmm.
into Tala stuff, and without the crazy late game, but while still being like this mid range deck. Um, but I can still see how even with that anti synergy, Sail might just be good enough.
Yeah, it's actually worth pointing out the Scepter of Arendelle, why it's in this deck as well, is that it gives chosen character support, which then can actually buff up some of your other characters to have more strength, which sure doesn't synergize with Tinkerbell, but synergizes with Flynn. And notably, this also has the 6 cost Maximus in the deck, which is at the end of your turn, not at the start, at the end of your turn. If you have a character in play with 5 or more strength, you gain 2 lore. But if you have a character with 10 or more strength in play, you gain 5 lore. So the idea is, I don't know, like you can give one of your 5 strength characters support, quest with it, give that strength to another 5 strength character, make that 10 strength, and then end the turn gain 5 lore. Like that sounds fun.
Yeah,
That's just cool, right?
that sounds very cool. I just want to. I think you said it all. The Scepter also works with Flynn, but that it doesn't, right?
Oh, it doesn't
Flynn
correct.
triggers
Yes,
part of
yes, yes. Yeah, apologies.
um,
My thought
but
process was it only works with Maximus. Yes, yeah.
yes, but it doesn't just work with Maximus. It also works with Li Shang because you can give
Hmm.
something enough strength to get the lore boost.
Yeah. Overall, honestly, like a very innovative deck, very fun, and with a lot of the stuff that uh, Ruby Sapphire might be losing coming into this. Granted, I think there's still possibilities for like item builds and stuff, but I think this might have a little bit of a place with experimentation, but then the further you look into it, there are also a lot of key cards that this deck is losing, right? Flynn, I'm pretty sure, is a set 4 card, so you're losing Flynn, which is a big piece of this deck. You lose your Maui. You probably lose your Popsicle. You probably lose your Tala. Like, do you think they're gonna reprint Popsicle, Moyen? I honestly don't know. That's the one card that really confuses me because on one hand, it's so synergistic to like supporting items, and that's a
Hmm.
big thing about Sapphire. So I could see them reprint it. On the other hand, it's just played so much that if they didn't reprint it, I wouldn't hate it either. I know Sapphire players would probably disagree, but it's so hard for me to tell what they'll do with this card.
Yeah, I already lost my poor Fortisphere. I won't take it. They can't take the popsicle away.
Yeah. Okay, moving into the next 2 decks that we're going to talk about. It's a deck that Moyen's built, which is
Yeah.
green blue.
So yeah, over the last few weeks, I've kind of like tested 2 more spicy decks. Now, end of next weekend, I'll be playing the tournament in Madrid. I'm kind of like not super interested in playing the most meta deck. Um, but like at the end of the day, I might play something that's better. So like it's not the end of the world for me, but I am still like trying some spicier decks. One of them being this green blue. Um, and it's been so much better than I first thought. So I actually spent some time on it because I was like, okay, this deck can actually do some powerful stuff. Um, And to everyone that's not super familiar with the deck, it kind of it has multiple ways of leveraging the bounce effects to more than just bouncing their cards, either by also turning that into card draw, because it kind of ties into the tempo and value thing we've had, right? Usually bouncing it is like mostly tempo, but if you're bouncing something, gaining tempo of that, and also then gain the value of that all those extra cards that you're gaining with Clarabelle, suddenly bouncing can be very, very good. And the other way the bouncing synergizes is with the bend to my will, where it's like then it's actually just removing that card because you're bouncing it and then you're discarding it. And the biggest surprise in this deck to me, and also the biggest basically the only reason I actually revisited the deck is this Basil. Basil? I don't know. In this deck, it's been absolutely amazing. You can just hyper ramp into a Clarabelle and then follow it up with the Basil, which can be huge. Even so, sometimes with this deck, you just like you ramp, maybe you play Clarabelle, maybe you play Bend, and then you deal with everything that they have on board. But then there's these pesky Amethyst decks that think it's okay to redraw some sort of hand. And then the buzzer hits them, and they're like, oh, okay, I could draw some cards, but then on quest, I'm just losing it again and again. Then there's even, let's say, I play Bent, they play a character. I play Basil on it, bounce it back to hand, and now they have two cards in hand, and okay, let's say they can only play one of them. The other one, if they keep it in hand, it's gone. But if they ink it, I could also just hit them with the next Basil, bounce the character, then my first Basil quest discards it. This Basil has been so amazing in this deck that I also went and tested it in like Emerald Amethyst, and Amber Emerald Discard, and all of the other decks. And in all of the other decks, it's pretty bad. Because by the time you get to 7 ink, you need to be doing more than playing a character and bouncing a card. And then also the discarding card at random on quest never really comes into effect because they just quest. They just use all of their cards, and they're out of cards by that point anyways. But in this deck, because it plays so many bounce effects, you get a lot more value of this on quest discard effect. All of this to say that in the end, I kind of dismissed the deck idea again, because while it was so much better than I first thought, and it was like crushing some matchups like Blurple and Ruby Sapphire were super hard to lose. So you'd have to play like pretty bad to lose those matchups. But then on the other hand, there was some matchups like other discard decks that you were like really, really struggling against. So like I don't love playing decks that have such bad matchups where they're like pretty hard to win no matter what you do. But again, the deck was quite fun, much better than it was the last 3 sets, mostly because of the Basil. And yeah, I had a lot of fun trying it out.
This deck seems very fun to me. Like, this is something I've been meaning to try and play before like rotation hits and stuff. Granted, I don't kind of have many cards with me, and as I've mentioned previously, I'm not like the biggest fan of kind of playing on Lorcanito. However, during the day one of Worlds, when I went to an LGS here in Berlin and I watched you and Spessy for like a watch party in the LGS, as the stream was on in the background, we played some games, and I played against somebody who played this deck against me. Few changes, which I would love to hear your opinion on. They had a few different cards, but it was probably the most fun game of Lorcana I've played in so long. So I played Amber Emerald Discard, and it was just absolutely bizarre because they would, play Clarabelle, I'd play John, I'd discard their whole hand, they just redraw their whole hand. I had to Bruno a Clarabelle, 1 in 10 chance of hitting the Clarabelle. I hit the Clarabelle. Like, some crazy scenes happened, right? But this had like the deck had a lot of really 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 cool combos that it could do. And yeah, like the most basic one, something that you spoke about, but like being able to bounce something and then play Bend to My Will is super good. Like your welcome becomes like such an insane card if you can follow up Bend to My Will, because you're just getting rid of one of their characters. Sure, they can draw some
Or
cards that they're just
locations
gonna,
or
yeah,
items.
or locations or items exactly, and then their hand is gone, right? Um, so some different cards I would love to hear your opinion on. One, I think they played the one cost Clarabelle to have a shift target for the bigger Clarabelle, um, and I think the other main one was, I think maybe they played some strike of good matches to have some more card drop, but they also played Under the Sea to try and actually be able to deal with like that card was actually particularly good against my. I feel like if
Mm.
they didn't have Under the Sea against Amber Emerald, I was probably winning. But the fact that they could clear my board and I had to have a hand to kind of refuel was pretty important. So would love to hear your thoughts on maybe those three cards potentially including in this build. So the one drop Clarabelle, strike a good match, and Under the Sea.
Yeah. Okay, the one drop Clarabelle is actually pretty decent in this deck. Sometimes it helps you get the Clarabelle out to turn sooner, which can be great.
Mhm.
Um, the item removal isn't awful right now with like Carpetbag and Workshop in the meta,
Mhm.
but still, it's like a very low impact card to draw at most stages of the game. I think it's fine to include, but I opted not to run it. Um, Next one, Strike a Good Match. I think Strike a Good Match is fine if you want like higher, like wanting some extra songs for the muses. I think right now I would prefer Heffalumps and Woozles mostly if it's just for because outside of just being a song that draws, I know it doesn't provide the same consistency as Strike a Good Match, but outside of that, it also answers Iago, which is huge in the current meta.
Mhm.
And it can help you stabilize against Ember Steel, which at times can be like a little bit too fast for you.
Mhm.
Um, and then the last one
Under the Sea.
was the Under the Sea, right? It is great against your deck, I think, but against most matchups, it doesn't remove much, and you're like you you're single target bouncing a lot of the stuff anyway, so like
Sure.
that the value of like an AoE wipe
It only helps
is
against
quite diminished.
Prince John, and if they have amuses, right? That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, most of the time even if you face it, John, right? As you said, like you can Prince John discard them, but like if you get a lot of cards in your hand, that makes their Clarabelle better. It makes them their bend, like their
Yep.
bend will
Yep.
still result in you having an empty hand. Like I can, they don't have to deal with Prince John. Like they can still beat it
Yep.
without dealing with it at times. Um, and then another card that I tried in this was the Donald Duck on the 5 drop, because especially now that the deck plays like 4 Basil, 4 Clarabelle,
Mm.
you really want to just go to 7.
Mhm.
You don't want to have 6 ink with this deck.
Mhm.
But it just ended up being so low impact. Like if you play Donald on that 5 ink turn, you're not really doing much else. Um, so I'd rather set up anything that sings Falco, and then I can still um, play like a Louis or anything that impacts the board a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I guess two things about this deck in general to anyone that hasn't played it. Um, there's some very important things, like the bell in this is quite good, because to not lose to aggressive decks, okay, you need the 3/3 body, but what's also great is that it's just like a singer, a very early singer for any song,
Mhm.
if you want to play like an early muses,
Mhm.
um, to kind of recover the board. And the other one is the You're Welcome. It's amazing in this deck, not just as removal, because as removal it can be great because you don't care about the cards in hand as much because of Clarabelle and Bend. But even when they have like when you're going to bend them, sometimes you're still also running out of cards, and
Mhm.
it might still be better to just leave their character, like if it's just a small character, to leave that on the board and you're welcome something of your own.
Yep.
And um, I also tried like Tamatoa in this deck list, the 6-drop Tamatoa, but most of the time you were if you got any Clarabelle off, or even just like a bend, you were doing fine in terms of like card advantage. Um, and your welcome on Popsicle is actually quite amazing.
Yeah, I can.
Because
Mhm.
yeah, like you don't care about the Popsicle on your board that much, and it's just like a 4-cost inkable draw two if you have a popsicle on the bot. So like your welcome is very, very versatile in this deck. So
I
it's also like a very skill testing deck, but I think it's not quite there, sadly.
It seems fun though. It seems like a very very fun deck. Like it's it's tickling my fancy. It's something I would really really love to try. And all like I just love talking through all of the different card choices. I think blue green actually has a lot of other options, like some of the ones we mentioned that like you could consider to try and slot in. I think the conversation you had there about the Donald Duck, um, after speaking about the how far I'll go, it just makes a lot more sense because by establishing the character and then still saying the how far I'll go on turn 5, it's kind of accomplishing the same thing. Um, but the you're welcome. I miss playing this card with an Amber Emerald. I remember for the influencer set champs in set 5 being first of all being able to have a way to deal with locations that wasn't just Cricky was great. Like, oh, there's a McDuck Manor. I don't have to wait to have my Cricky to buff my like Sir Hiss and all my little wieners. No, I can just you're welcome it. Or I remember, uh, I think sang a song with an aerial or I quested the aerial, whatever, and I used my own muses to sing "You're Welcome" to put the muses back into my deck. But how the bag works is you can still use the muses to bounce something. So I still bounce my aerial back to my hand, and there was just crazy stuff you could do with it, right? And I just loved the versatility of your welcome is so huge, like you mentioned, right? You take out a carpet bag, take out a manor, take out a character, shuffling your own popsicle back into your deck. That sounds so great in a deck like this. Honestly, oh, I need some more cards. Let me just put this card back to my deck. That's literally not doing anything anymore. That's on the board, especially in a deck like this. Um, so yeah, man, you're making me want to play this. It seems fun.
Yeah, it was one of the most fun decks I've played recently.
Cool. Okay, moving on to your next deck. I know this is
Right.
one that you really tried to speak to Frank about, and you're like, Frank, do you believe in this? Can you please tell me if this is good? And he was like, Yeah, no, I don't think this sounds good. So I'd love to
No,
hear.
that's not what he said.
Well, he didn't say it was great. He said it maybe, right? He didn't say, "Oh, Moyen, you're a genius," right? He didn't say
Yeah,
that.
well, it
But
wasn't even okay. The base idea wasn't even mine, right? It was
sure,
like
that's
this
true.
this that got second place
I think it was
from War.
PPG, right? Yeah, what the
Yeah,
PPG event? Yeah.
second place at PPG, and it was a different list, right? That list was playing Smee, Lawrence, and
Ah, yes, yes.
like two You Have Forgotten Me's.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the way I've built it is like kind of combining it with like what Sky tried to make out of Amber Steel,
Mm-hmm.
which is like this like very beefy character approach with Beast Ariel and BR Guest, which I found really 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 strong.
Ed's list was
Um,
similar to this as well, right? With that in mind, kind of.
yes,
Yeah.
I think yeah, like Ed was also inspired, I
Mm-hmm.
think, from
From
the way
Sky,
I built
yeah, he
it.
said that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I think both of these approaches work quite well together. And okay, I started this deck with like 3, 4 Yui, and drawing multiples of them, it can be quite clunky. But I do think this Yui is still very, very good in the deck. And also something like at first I was still playing the 4 small rhinos, but I think you can play less of the small rhinos because you need like even with just one or maybe even 2 Yui, because you need the shift line a little bit less because you have the Yui
Mm-hmm.
into Rhino on 3 line as well. And if you ever get to like the Yui ever sticks, which isn't that rare, you also get to like play Beast a turn early, Ariel a turn early. It's very very tough to come back from. And then also you have like this discard package that can um, help you outgrind other decks even more. So like against Ruby Sapphire, unfortunately, they will just have quite a bit of time to also get back into the game because you are not questing very fast. But against like any other mid-range or somewhat aggressive deck, this absolutely wrecks them. Like it's not particularly close.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, this and the Green Blue deck have been quite fun. This is closer to I guess what we know. Green Blue is a little bit more out of the ordinary, but this is still like even if it changes like a few cards, it changes how the games play out completely.
Sure. Yeah. No, I really like the idea of the list. I mean, it. I will admit, it's like I feel like with this type of deck, you probably have to play with the discard package to really feel the impact of it. I feel like from looking at it, you might not really
Mhm.
feel like, does this really do it? But like, would you agree? Like, were you a little bit skeptical when you first saw this list and were like,
Yeah, no, of course I was. It was like this Daisy Duck without even Prince John.
yeah, that's
Daisy
how
Duck
I
with
feel.
blue.
I'm looking at this. I'm like, how work? But you're
Yeah.
gonna have to play it, right? So,
Yes.
yep.
Because like at the end of the day, you're just like you're not super explosive in your questing, but you will remove some characters,
Hmm.
you will play a lot of characters, your opponent will discard some cards. So like you kind of just amass this huge wall of like stuff that quests for one, and then at some point you say go, or your opponent or the Daisy Duck might force your opponent into the decision where okay, it discard the entire hand, but maybe either they keep the beast answer or they keep the card that's like a good proactive play, and then like it forces some weird situations, and then you punish them with your bigger bodies.
Hmm. Okay, so the next section that we're going to be moving into is I want to give a shout out to, I think it's Braden MTG on Twitter. They made a post a couple of days ago where they brewed up some set like 5 to 8 lists, and this got me thinking of something fun that I think you guys could do, and maybe like let us know your thoughts down below in the comments. But myself and Moyen were even thinking like uh, maybe next week you guys could send in your if you guys performed well at set champs and stuff, maybe we can review some set championship lists, but then also on top of that we can be like, okay, what did these lists look like if we remove sets 1 to 4, and we can kind of get this idea of, okay, like what does Amber Steel really keep from 5 to 8, what does Emerald Amethyst keep from 5 to 8. So I wanted to have a look at these decks, to just have a look at some general cards that maybe some people thought would be worth including. I mean, notably, like some of the best cards from set 5 to 8 within these colors are going to be in here, but it's more about what are the other cards that they put in here.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, like this is, you need to remember, this is without the context of, this is pretending, not pretending we don't have reprints coming, but we literally have no idea what cards are being reprinted, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this isn't like, oh, I'm assuming this card is kept or this card is kept. So the first one here is it's a purple steel deck with a lot of the stuff that we know and love, right? You've got the Calhoun, the Doc, the Cobra. You've still got Pete, because, yeah, Pete was set 5, the Genies, the White Rose, and the Mind Package. Like, all of those cards, I think, are very, very good. We know them to be very, very good. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of picking out some of these other cards that are accompanying it. My first impressions is this doesn't look awful. This looks like it could
Yeah.
be an okay purple steel list.
Um, yeah, especially like if maybe some of the steel removal doesn't get reprinted, maybe
Mhm.
the vanish keyword also gets like is like less exploitable.
Mhm.
Um, so maybe there's something there. I think the panic is something I'm quite interested in. Maybe I just got hyped from seeing it in sealed in
Yeah.
world so much. But
Yeah.
if the power level lowers with a smaller card pool, I think like there could be a space for panic to shine. Then we have like this Yelana, which is kind of like a crab with a little bit worse stats, but quests for 2, and a little bit less of an effect.
Mhm.
I think the biggest one that I don't really see happening is the Sultan,
Mm.
which is when the illusion quests you can exert one, but there's like a 5 cost uninkable that also has vanish, because we will still have actions that can target. Like if a deck with so many vanish characters was meta, I think we'd still have cards that we could include. Um, I don't quite know where improvise and hypnotic strength and everything came from, but
I
I'm
think
pretty sure we still have
hypnotic
some.
would stay and improvise would go. Improvise was set too. But yeah,
Mhm.
I agree with you. Like a deck like this could be pretty good at the start of a new meta, right? I actually think this could be quite interesting. But as the meta starts to develop, and let's say people kind of caught onto this deck, I don't think you could really afford to play a 5 cost uninkable 5/5 that quest for 2, where your opponent could literally just like remove it very easily. Granted, it is actually worth noting that the Sultan himself is an illusion, so it's not the fact that you need to have another illusion on the board. He himself, when he quests, you're able to exert something. Um,
Mhm.
I have a feeling they maybe could have made this card inkable. Maybe the card would be a bit too good. Maybe be a bit too strong. But I don't know. I can't really see it being worth it if enough of the vanish answers come into
But
the
like,
meta.
yeah, but the rest of the shell is just like that. Those are just some very, very good cards.
I agree. Yep, like the Honey Marin. Like I love that they're basically playing all of the get lore from hand cards now that Goat's probably going to be gone, right? So like the Honey Marin, the White Rose, the Cobra, Twin
Yeah.
Fire, even kind of interesting as a
Even-
one-up, honestly.
Even the queen, I know it's not like straight up form hand, but if that sticks one turn, it can gain so much draw.
And I think a big thing that people will start to realize once we kind of get to the rotation stuff as well is we're keeping a very good location within Amethyst. The Queen's Castle's going, but that card's kind of been out of the meta for a while. But we keep the library, and the library we know we won't be able to combo it with Chernobog's followers anymore or the Broom if they're not reprinted. I mean, personally, I could see a card like the Magic Broom at least getting reprinted because I think if they want to do more Broom stuff in the future, it could be cool. But that card's just a good location, so I'm kind of glad that we still have it within the meta. Yep. Okay, next deck list to take a look at. Blurple. What are your thoughts on, I guess, the Blurple shell right now, and what are some of the key things that it loses, right?
Blurple right now, pretty decent.
Yes.
Still has a very tough time against red-blue items and red-purple. Outside of that, actually pretty decent matchup spread.
Yep.
But still struggles against those. And then I think it might be very good after rotation.
Wait, this has a card in it from set 1. I don't know if this card's been confirmed to be reprinted, but
Which one?
This does have an 8-cost Elsa, Spirit of Winter, which I'm pretty sure is a set 1 card. Right?
Yeah, I haven't like kept track of what confirmed reprints we have so far.
I haven't seen this being confirmed as a reprint, but maybe they know something I don't.
Sure. I guess in general I think Blurple can be quite strong post rotation because we still have Tipo and Sail,
which is huge.
Tipo and Sail are both absolutely amazing cards. If you compare them to any other TCG, Ramp in Lorcana is so strong. But maybe the usual combination. I mean, Sapphire Steel already vanished with the bans recently, but I think Ruby Sapphire, if like the big payoff cards for ramping don't get reprinted, might also struggle, right? If we don't have B prep, if we don't have like the big Sisu, what are you actually ramping to?
Yep.
But Blurple doesn't really have that issue because they have Iago. They don't have Iago, right? Yes.
They have Iago as an option, yes. Not in this list, but they will. Yeah.
I was like, why is there no Iago? There should probably be Iago in this. But they can just ramp to like amazing 4-drops, and they will also basically not run out of cards because they can just play like enough Genies, Finders, Keepers, etc. in their deck. So they can just like be a mid-range pile that also ramps onto with like high quality cards. So I like with all of the knowledge that we're still missing, I think like maybe Blurple is like at its best post rotation.
Yeah, potentially. I think there's another card that I would like to mention within this deck, and
that's the Royal Guard.
I
love the Royal Guard. I think it's almost good enough this set.
Okay.
It draws so many cards, it just challenges something. Bam.
Sure.
Play Finders Keepers. It draws 3. You drew 1 for turn. It has 5 strength now. Bam, challenges a Rhino. That's not even damage.
Sounds pretty good.
What card did you want to talk about?
I don't think the card's actually as good as the Royal Guard, but I'm just looking at some of the shift line options that this deck has, and the 7-drop Elsa is shift 4, and I can see that we have a 4-cost Elsa within this deck, which that doesn't really line up in my opinion. This 4-cost Elsa, I've played a little bit in Sealed. It can be okay. In Sealed, you don't really want to be getting rid of your own cards to exert something, but in Blurple, this card kind of does make sense because you should have a decent amount of cards in your hand. You get rid of 1, exert something. However, one card that we do know is coming as a reprint, I think this confirms as a reprint, is one of the example cards we've seen for the new Epic rarity coming to the game, which is between Enchanteds and Legendaries, is the 3-cost Elsa from set 1, which is a 3-cost inkable 2/3 that you can exert it to exert chosen opposing character. So
Mhm.
while that's maybe a little bit weird when you kind of want to shift something because you don't want to exert it and then shift, it's still an option that I feel like it's a better shift target than this 4-drop Elsa potentially. But at the same time, I can understand why this Elsa's in the deck because Blurple, draws little cards with Finders Keepers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, right. That would maybe be my number one criticism of the deck. Maybe there's a little bit too many Anna Elsa cards in this.
Sure, yeah, maybe they're trying to push that a little bit too much, but I also like that they never come back. I think that can be kind of an interesting card. Uh,
Sure.
Also, that's potentially an answer to Vanish as well, right? Like, yeah, like if you're targeting one of your opponent's cards, so
Mhm.
it's a anti.
Yeah, and this has 4 hypnotic strength, so this is like
Yes.
quite anti-Iago.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
I guess I don't know if the Into the Unknown ever becomes like such a good card because um
I don't know. I
it's
think
just
I think it's better. I think it might become better. It depends. It depends on how much removal we get. Like if we keep Let It Go or if we keep Hades, those are big removal options that we have for Sapphire.
right.
But if not, Into the Unknown, at least in the late game, if Blurple goes long, it's still a form of removal that if you're going against a deck that's also going long, like I don't know, if they play a big 8-drop and then you Into the Unknown it's something for removal. Now granted again,
You
they
have to exert it
you have to
always.
exert it to do it, right? You don't want them to get
Yeah.
whatever benefit
No,
they
but
get out of it, right? Yeah, yeah,
I guess that's fair. It might improve within the context of the better cards don't exist anymore.
correct. Yeah,
Right. Like, I think most of the time I would consider Let It Go and Hades the better cards.
yes, I agree. The next deck that we're going to take a look at is Red Purple Shark is the name of the deck. We can see the return of the 1-3. Olaf is back, ladies and gentlemen, but it has to be Pain because we're playing Panic and Pain in this deck. Moyen, some questionable cards in here. Very weird looking cards. There's one combo I
Mhm.
do want to highlight, but first of all, tell me your take on this deck.
Um, sure. I guess in general this will curve out. Um, on turn 3 it's a little bit weak. Because like I don't know how strong this Bucky is. I guess they don't know either. Because there's only 2 copies of it in it. Um, I think it will get through the early game just fine. It doesn't
Mhm.
quite have like the reset buttons late, but still, like it gets to some very strong turns with like half shark or even the Hades.
Mhm.
Maybe I would like to see even more of
Mhm.
those Hades.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it seems mostly fine. I think like the Forest Duel and Out of Order, I'm not quite sure if they are ever fast enough, even if we have a smaller card pool. But probably Red Purple Pile will always be okay.
I think
What do you think?
I think I agree, and I think it's very weak because like you look at this deck, and I think it's very difficult to try and evaluate a meta without a lot of the stuff that we're so used to playing, right? Like that's actually a very difficult thing to imagine. So in the context of a meta that has maybe a little bit less power level, some of these cards make sense. Like
Mhm.
I also don't know necessarily how to feel about Forest Jewel and Out of Order, but Forest Jewel I could see maybe doing something in the long term mid-range value game. Like you trade into some of your opponent's stuff, your stuff gets banished, you get some cards back. Like I can see it being okay. Um, the one combo I actually did want to point out in this deck is something that Baker already played against me within the Influencer Set Championship. Um, he said he's sending me the footage for our game soon. I don't. That might be on the channel soon. It was very fun games. It was Amber Emerald Discard versus Red Purple. I know Baker despises my deck, so apologies for he was not happy that he matched up with me, but no, he did something really cool in this deck, which is the combination of this Queen of Hearts and the 3-cost Madame Medusa. So the Queen of Hearts, for those who don't know, again, is a 2-cost inkable 1/4 that says while this character has damage, she gets +3 strength. And the Madame Medusa is when you play this character, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to return chosen character with cost 2 or less to their player's hand. So this is actually kind of a similar idea to what we were talking about for Kit, right? Now, granted, Kit can be different because if they play a 3-cost card, you can potentially bounce the 3-cost card if it has 2 strength or less. With the Madame Medusa, you're only bouncing a 2-cost card. However, if you're on the play and this is your opener, this is pretty powerful. Like
Yeah, that's quite fast.
I think I made the mistake of, in one of my games, I was afraid that Baker was going to play to the board too fast, so I was trying to set up like uh the Amber 1/4 Ursula and then like a Prince John to sing, where I think I should have just the 2-drop didn't matter too much in my deck, but I think I should have just played like a Emerald Ursula to have the on-play effect, to see if there was a song. If they bounce that back to my hand, I can replay a pretty good on-play effect. But I think I ended up, I played like my 1/4 Ursula. They did this combo, and they're so ahead. Like, they're so ahead. Suddenly, they've got a 4-2 on the board and a 3-3, and if I haven't played a 1-drop, I've got nothing. Like, that's pretty impressive. So I think, honestly, moving forward for red-purple, that's a particular combo that... I mean, what do you think? Like, that it felt strong when it was played against me, right? And I even thought about it. I was trying to play around that. I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't have it, and then he had it, and I was like, yeah, I'm screwed. I'm screwed.
Yeah. No, it seems quite strong on the play. It's very good tempo. It also, like, if post-rotation, the 6-cost Hades and the 7-cost Hades are also good cards, all of them also synergize with the Queen of Hearts. So with all of those synergies together, I think the Queen of Hearts will or could become very, very good again.
Yep, I agree. Cool. The next deck is a Emerald Amethyst deck. One thing I said to Moyen before we started the pod was, I think that we're gonna see the return, because he has been in the meta already, the return of Banzai. I think...
Royal Guard!
is it a return if he's never been here already?
No, I've played him.
Okay.
In my testing decks.
Okay, the return of the Royal Guard for Moyen. But for everybody else, the return of Banzai. So Banzai was played in green-purple at a stage where, at least in my opinion, I felt like Ruby Sapphire was so dominant that it very much pushed Amber Steel kind of aside. So a lot of the green-purple decks weren't so worried against playing against Amber Steel, and they really teched their deck to beat the Ruby Sapphire decks. And I think that if a lot of the removal that we see within Steel is going to be rotated out, such as let the Storm Rage on, I think Banzai becomes a very, very, very good card. The rest of this list has a few like weird things in it, but for the most part, a lot of it does kind of make sense to me. We already mentioned the Queen seems pretty powerful. I'm actually glad to see the Iago in this right now as well. But yeah. The Louis is really good as well. Go-Go's a great card. I'm curious in your thoughts of one of the Pinocchio, and then also the more we kind of think about set 5 to 8, and the more I'm just really thinking about how much we're talking about this like Vanish stuff. Like, we know Iago's a very good card now. I'm very interested to see how. The more we've just talked about it, I'm so interested to see how this is going to pan out moving into rotation. The Vanish keyword on a big, powerful card like Iago. Like, we saw some people do the Hypnotic Strength and the Improvisers. Like, I think people might really be teching against the Vanish stuff, right?
Right, it's like the ceiling for Vanish cards are kind of set with like the inherent counter cards that you can always include if there's enough of them in the meta. So, like, luckily enough, they balance themselves. Otherwise, we're just always be jamming this Evasors 4-6 post-rotation, and it would just like dominate the board. The Pinocchio, I think, is kind of getting lost in the sauce because while, okay, maybe the Peter Pans are gone, so we won't be like washing into the Pinocchio as much, but still, right now these 4 decks that we're looking at are like the very first thoughts, right, before we even know what's being reprinted and everything, but still all of these 4 decks, they're amethyst piles. Like, they're all of these were like,
I didn't even realize they're all amethyst. Yeah, you're right.
Let's play Genie, etc. So all of these decks, they play like Genie and Elsa basically. So if I play Genie, you play Pinocchio, and then I play Elsa, that's like my Genie plus the Elsa will always be able to take out the Pinocchio. So I think it's still probably too vulnerable. Although the payoff would be great if you get to stick a Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So The only thing I'm like slightly disappointed in, I think it makes sense to say, okay, a lot of the card draw is kind of gone. We might not have how far go anymore to generate card advantage. I don't know, but when workshop came, but like maybe that card advantage engine's gone.
Mm-hmm.
Pinch drawn might be gone. Um,
I think a
like
lot of
we
people
still
hope
do
that's
still need to
gone.
draw cards. Yeah. But I think one avenue has been missed, which is I think all of the Clarabelles are set 5 or later.
Mm-hmm.
And they might have a very in this like hypothetical meta, they might have a very good place if everyone's just like, oh, I have to also draw cards. Then you just go, okay, I outtempo you. I play Clarabelle. I don't care that you drew some cards, and it could be with Sapphire. It could be also maybe with Amethyst. But I think like you could also very much brew with Clarabelle shift line.
Man, I'm getting so excited for rotation. The idea of like, I don't know, like, because this to me is still completely fresh new decks. Like, it might have a lot of the powerful cards that we're familiar with, but it's all of the other cards that you're pairing with it to combine it. Like, it seems so interesting to me, and I'm just like, I really am very, very excited. The simple thing that you spoke about there of like the genie and the Elsa against the Pinocchio, right? And I'm very much assuming like, because you've playtested a lot of the current decks, right? Like that stuff probably even comes up now where you take out one of your opponent's genies, right? Like you play
Sure,
genie,
yeah.
or they play genie, you play genie, or whatever, and it's like, yeah, okay, my genie plus my Elsa kills your genie. Um, so yeah, it's the same logic that you're following, right? So I'm intrigued to see how things will pan out. I'm also intrigued to see, even with the reprints, how many of the reprint cards are actually going to be relevant as well. Are we going to more so try and stick to piles like this, where it literally is more set 5 to set 9 cards rather than a lot of the inclusions from sets 1 to 4? And finally, I just want to give actually a shout out to Braden, because, like you said, Moyen, we could be looking at this and be like, oh, this just looks like a pile of cards. It's so weird. But props to him for building these decks, making an attempt, and it's generated some very, very interesting conversations. So I encourage this type of stuff. Honestly, I feel like if I was more creative with deck building, this is the exact type of thing that I would be doing. I really want to try to do this, but as Brendan has said in the past, I'm a classic deck tweaker. You know,
Oh,
people brew the decks and I change them, right?
I would probably qualify as a tweaker as well, but maybe we can try building some of our own
We
of
should.
these
I think
until
it'll be
next
quite
week.
fun. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. On a side note, that's the end of the decks, by the way. On a side note, I've been thinking of some new video ideas to do for the channel, and I tested Moyen with some other stuff before this episode of the podcast. I'm sure he can attest that we have some pretty fun stuff coming. Um, the
Yeah,
first, go ahead, go ahead.
we were like about to start the pod, and then I kept being tested with like these game show ideas, and then at the end I didn't even want to like start recording. I was like, no, give me the next test.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure you guys will enjoy it.
Yeah, so I have something coming out hopefully tomorrow, maybe at least by the end of the week, with another Disney Lorcana creator. And something else I've thought about, I think this is a lot of work to do, but if people want to do it, I will try my best to do it. I haven't even pitched this idea to you yet, Moyen, so I'm going to say it to you live on the pod. How do you feel about our viewers trying to submit custom cards? So let's say it's 15 custom cards for one deck and 15 custom cards for another one, and we can just times 4 all of them, and we play them on like we play with these cards in a deck against each other. It seems
So
so
build us like
bizarre. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
a custom deck with custom cards that don't exist, and we play with them.
Yes.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if it would be
decks are fun.
entertaining. If I mean, honestly, the cards themselves would have to be somewhat balanced, somewhat funny, maybe somewhat overpowered. But if people want to do that, I could maybe curate a thing and I can print out the proxies and we could do it. But it could be fun. It could be fun. All right, yeah. So that's pretty much it for this week's episode of the podcast. I thought it was a pretty interesting one. I've enjoyed kind of exploring the idea of post rotation stuff. Like I said, be sure to go in the Discord and within like this building section, submit some of your well performing deck lists from set champs. Like I know maybe a lot of people expected us to talk about like the best set champs lists. Myself and Moyen even debated kind of will that just be like the topic for this week, but for us at least, I feel like it's more interesting to maybe explore some of these future ideas. Obviously, discuss the hot topics within the community at the moment. And I like what you highlighted, Moyen. I like seeing some kind of spicy brew decks. Then I feel like right now within the meta, I kind of know what decks will do pretty good at set champs, right? Like if I see a set champs with a spicy deck list or something like we saw with this Ruby Sapphire deck, I would be more than happy to kind of highlight it, right? But I just don't. I don't know. I feel like viewers might be like, "Oh, it's another shark deck that won a set champs. It's another Emerald Amethyst deck that won a set champs." Like for me at least, it's like if I was on the other side of watching the content, I want to see some spicy stuff and have some listen to some interesting conversations.
Also, at the end of the day, I think, of course, we'll try to cater towards what we think everyone wants to hear, but also we'll just like talk about what we feel like talking about.
Sure, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this week's episode of the podcast, the number one thing you can do is leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There's a video version available over youtube.com/@PodcanaPodcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Twitters are @Moyen_HS and @Kawatech_CG. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.